Hello, it's David from David Savory Electrical Services Limited, and back in November I did a little off-the-cuff videoette about two failed Excite branded LED floodlights. In that video I expressed my disappointment that the two luminaires of a reputable brand from a reputable trade wholesaler had apparently given the level of performance one may expect had they been sourced from an iffy eBay seller straight from the shitola Chinese Christmas cracker factory. The two floodlights I looked at had failed for different reasons. One had evidence of moisture ingress and a balked PIR, the other had a failed LED die, and between them I was able to cobble together one worker which I have since put into personal use and will leave to operate for however long it wants to operate for. Maybe there'll be future problems with it, maybe there won't, but it has a second chance of life. Anyway, I was disappointed to see Duff Excite models, as although I hadn't supplied and installed the two fail units, I have used Excite products in the past, mainly LED buttons and under cabinet lighting, and I myself have not experienced any problems with those such products to date. Following on from that video were the comments from you guys and girls out there. Wait, hang on. Okay, maybe just you guys out there. Jesus, I'm really not pulling in the kids with these videos either. Maybe I ought to do a Rubik's Cube or something to get in with the youth. Well, whatever, but of the handful of gentlemen who do tune into my waffling, several of you kindly took the time out to leave comments of your own horror stories of LED floodlights failing prematurely. Why oh why is it apparently so tricky to shoehorn an LED driver and chip package into a weatherproof PIR enclosure? Now you may recall that although I hadn't supplied and installed the two floodlights in that last video, I did go on to say that I'd put in a lot of Look Eco models without too much trouble. Well, that was obviously a red rag to Electrolord, the god of fate and pisser off of all jobbing electricians, as within a week I was pulling this bastard off someone's wall on a warranty call out. Yes, it's a failed Look Eco model. This one flashes like a strobe light at an all-night rave, and it's the third failure of this brand for me now. I won't be pulling this one apart as it's still under warranty, so I'll be seeking a refund, but I've lost time on the job to change it out, so in business terms I'm out of pocket. And of course I've also lost face with my client, as when I installed this thing I extolled the virtues of LED lighting and its long life, low power, low maintenance advantages, so this thing going screwy is maybe not like a ruddy fibber, and I'm not too happy about that. And then there's this, another failed Excite flood, same model as before, as the previous video, and this time this is one that I had installed back in late 2017, and with a rather waterlogged PIR, as you can see from this in situ snap. I'll tell you what though, although it wasn't sealed well enough to prevent the water from getting in, the bloody stuff isn't coming back out again. You can probably see that on the camera there, that sloshing around in that PIR. I don't know if you can see it very well. And that's nearly 2 weeks since we pulled that out. It's been rattling around on the back of the van since, but it's not draining out of there, so I guess it's kind of sealed in some way. Again, I won't be taking that to bits as it's under warranty, and thank goodness for that, because I purchased it in 2017, so it's over 12 months old, but there is a 3-year warranty on these things, on these particular models anyway, so go back and dig through your invoices if you've been caught short, as many manufacturers offer extended support on these kind of items. Anyway, the good folks at Tamlite who produced the Excite brand saw that last video, and I received a jolly nice letter from them apologising for those products failing to perform to my expectations. They've also sent me this, which is their new model, now being stocked to replace the older unit, which had proved so problematic, at least for me. So it's new. But is it improved? Well, obviously I can't comment on the longevity at this time, although I have already installed one out in the wild to replace the aquatically challenged unit we saw earlier. Only time can tell if the new one does the distance, but we can at least have a look in this video at what is hopefully makes this model this new model a better bet. First up, you'll notice that it's a rather different form factor, certainly much a slimmer design, and that's got to be a good thing, I reckon. When I look at LED floodlights in this older style like we have here, I always wonder if they were really designed for the task, or if someone just said, you know, the factory is already tooled up for halogen floods, let's just keep that style of casing and shoehorn the LED electronics into there. I guess that's probably a little flippant. Of course, this was always designed as an LED model, but the overall form factor of this thing is very much similar to the halogen fittings of old. Why though? I mean, it was never a particularly attractive case style. You can understand it on halogen units, as the hot lamp needed to be a distance from the glass, and setting the lamp back allowed a reflector to focus and increase the light output. But although practical in that regard, it's a chunky utilitarian looking thing that many people don't particularly want stuck to the front of their mock George and Barrett home. So I guess that thing is a crossover between the traditional halogen floods and what we have here, which is pure LED breed from the ground up. And that's my point really. While the design design of the old model harks back to the dark age of bright, energy-gobbling halogen. This new variant eschews the halogen heritage entirely for a completely original LED design. Now, obviously Tamlite aren't the first to design an exterior luminaire that doesn't follow the traditional floodlight form factor, but nonetheless it's good to see that we have something here that's really made for today's technology without harking back to the luminaires of yesteryear. However, stylistic shenanigans aside, can I trust this new model over the old? Apart from its looks, what have Tamlite done to give me the confidence as an installer that once I bolt this onto a customer's outside wall, it's going to stay there without me getting a tinkle on the telephone a few months later from a disappointed client reporting some operational misbehaviour? Well, there's a significant change to the PIR sensor, so let's talk about that first. PIR sensors are nothing new, and we've all seen or even have halogen floods that have been up on the wall for 20 plus years whose sensors are still going strong. So it rather baffles me that in many cases with the LED floods it's not the LED driver or chipset that's failing, but the sensor itself, either because of moisture ingress, as was the case with the previous light, or because of componentry failure, and there's really no excuse for that as tried and tested housings, components and circuit designs have been around for years. Premature failures of the sensor should not be happening in this day and age. If a 10 quid halogen PIR sold by Homebase back in 2003 can still be found in working condition today, then why can't a sensor manufactured in 2017 still be operating by 2019? I know the cost of manufacturing is forever being driven down, but we're talking about discrete components that cost pennies, not custom silicon or bespoke smart technology. This is basic stuff, it should be bulletproof by now. I can't speak for the longevity of the components in this new model, at least not yet, nor can I comment on the circuit design, which I'm not privy to, but I would hope that it lasts better than the model in the previous video whose sensor had seemingly failed electrically. That said, one thing which is a definite plus point here today is that while the old model had an IP44 rating that, it must be said, it didn't live up to, this one has a sensor rated to IP65, which is above and beyond the rating of most on the market, so that is definitely a step in the right direction. If water could be kept away from the sensor electronics, then by jingo we may just stand a chance. Next is the LED driver. Now, to be fair, I myself have not seen a failed LED driver in a Tamlite Excite model. Here's the one I took out of the bigger model in that last video. I've got it on the shelf as a spare now, as it was the LED die itself that had failed in that particular luminaire. So I've got this one as a spare, and you can see it's a 55 volt model branded as Fuji Power. I don't know, whatever it is, it may be a perfectly fine brand, I've not seen one fail, but then I've only been exposed to a tiny sample. Obviously it's a Chinese thing, but then most electronics are these days, and being Chinese doesn't automatically mean it's shite. It's all down to the quality control standards of the factories on the ground and the pricing demands and expectations of their end clients. This brand, unrecognisable as it is to me, may well source quality components and build to a worthy design, as perhaps demanded by the likes of Tamlite. Still, Tamlite tell me that for the higher wattage newer models are now equipped with Meanwell drivers. Now, while I haven't heard of Fuji Power here and I can't seem to find any information on them, I certainly have heard of Meanwell. In fact, here is a 24 volt Meanwell PSU for a defibrillator unit, another thing we have experience of installing incidentally. Now, using Meanwell drivers can't be a bad thing. Meanwell may not be a name on the high street, but they're a big brand in power supplies, and if the people who make medical equipment rely on them, then it seems to me to be a pretty good punt to put one in your friggin' floodlight. Okay, there are two more good points I want to mention, but before I get onto those, I want to address the bad points. And yes, there is a negative side to this, but I don't want to end the video on negatives because I appreciate that Tamlite have put some effort into hopefully producing a product that is less likely to let me down. So, negatives. First, the bracket. The bracket. The bracket is identical to the old model. In fact, when we took this one down, this flooded unit, we just left the old bracket up there on the wall and affixed the new model to it. The problem with the bracket is that when you remove it, the whole thing from the box, the bracket needs to be disassembled from the unit so that you can get your screwdriver or impact driver onto it to attach it to the wall. Once it's on the wall, then you need to reattach the floodlight to it. It's a whole load of fannying about, and that's not the kind of fanny I'm after. Let's face it, if you're installing this, then this isn't going to be at a low level. You'll be up a ladder, and if you're a lazy bastard like me, then you'll probably be trying to do it all in as few climbs as possible. So you'll already have too many tools hanging off your tool belt to the detriment of your trouser midriff area. The last thing you need is to be pissing around at height with an adjustable spanner dropping bolts and washers and into the undergrowth or into inconveniently placed drains below, never to be found again. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's happened to. There are manufacturers out there who understand this bracketry pain in the arse and who take steps to work around it. For example, they fit angle brackets that can be installed without the need to remove it from the main body of the floodlight, or they supply them already detached when you open the box, so at least the disassembly stage can be avoided. And manufacturers have to remember that their customer isn't the person on whose property this floodlight will eventually be bolted onto. It's me, the installer. I'm their customer. I'm going to be asked to install a floodlight, and I'm going to select one based on cost, expectation of reliability, and ease of installation, and anything which requires additional parts or installation steps risks being overlooked in favour of an alternative product. Also added to the bracketry ball pain, I don't know how you can see up there, is the fixing hole size. What is this, about 10 centimetres or so? I mean, go out and get my finger in there. What kind of attachment bolt do they think I'll be using? I tend to fix most small domestic floodlights up with a red raw plug and a single 40mm screw, because the weight and wind loading really don't require any more than that. Maybe a bigger beast like this could use 2 screws, but here I'm going to have to supply and install the washers to reduce those hole sizes. It's not the end of the world, you know, but if I run out of washers, then certain swear words will be forthcoming, because as the installer on the ground, it's on me to find a way around the problem. And that's what I like about the Look Eco and Time Guard models. They have screw guards, screw holes rather, that work with, well, screws. So, I mean, I'm not going to be drilling a 10mm hole into the brickwork for some kind of anchor bolt for this thing. Let's be realistic here. Aside from the bracket, my only other issue is the pre-wired flex. Okay, I understand the pre-wiring is to maintain the IP rating, but as I showed in a video back in 2016, some Time Guard models still have the traditional connection enclosure of the style found on every halogen floodlight, so why is nobody else doing it? My problem with pre-wiring is that it means a junction is required. Now that's fine if you can drill straight through the wall to a switch, fuse or junction point behind it, but otherwise you're probably installing an exterior junction using a whisker box or similar. I'd rather have a junction enclosure on the fitting itself that I can take a new or existing cable into than have to piss about installing an aesthetically unfriendly grey box on the wall adjacent to this thing to contain the connections. Also, this is me hopefully doing the job properly, but how many DIYs do you think bodged the connection? I can't be the only person who's come across rusting connector blocks whose ingress protection is provided by a plastic bag. Right, okay, negatives aside, there are 2 other good points to mention here. Tamlite tell me this model has a breather gland, which the prior version lacked, and you can see it, it's this little knobbin just on the side here. This ought to keep the condensation out to prevent the kind of moisture ingress we saw in the last video. Basically, there's air trapped inside your floodlight, and that air is warmed by the electronics when the unit is in operation, causing it to expand and increase the internal pressure. Some of that warm dry air will be forced out where the seals are imperfect, but when the unit is turned off and cools down again, the remaining air inside will contract, now causing a negative internal pressure. As a result, the air outside, which may have a high moisture content, will be pulled in. This moisture eventually begins to condense into droplets which can pool where we don't want it, causing internal decay and electrical failure. The breather gland prevents these internal pressure changes, so although the air inside the unit is warmed by normal operation, it remains at the same pressure as the cooler, damper air outside. This means the dry internal air isn't being forced out and the cooler, damper air isn't being forced in. When the light goes off, the warm, dry air inside cools down, but as it's dry air, we don't see the condensation headache. Okay, one last point to cover, and to boost my viewer stats with the youth, I'll take one for Team Older Generation and fire up this Fortnite thing, which appears to be all the rage, and will give you something more entertaining to look at than my ugly mug as we finish off here. So to stay on topic, the final improvement Tamlite have informed me of is that we have an improved heatsink in the new model. We saw last time that the LED die had failed, and a common failure for any electronic component that heats up in use is poor heat management. If we can't dispose of the waste heat efficiently enough, then we'll end up barbecuing our electronics. I can't confirm that inefficient heat management was the cause of the demise of the LED die chipset shown in the last video, but it would fit the bill, and if the new model has seen an upgrade of the heatsink, then I presume a few warranty returns were perhaps identified to this sort of problem. Crikey, I can't get the hang of this thing. I really should have stuck with Space Invaders. Anyway, so there we are, a closer look at the new and improved Tamlite Excite floodlight model. What do you think? Do you agree with my appraisal? Did I miss anything? Have you any experiences of this thing to share in the comments below? Obviously, it's new to market at the time of recording, but maybe you're watching this in the future when we have flying Ubers, Fortnite 2 on the PlayStation 5 and evil cyborg overlords. Crikey, it's enough to drive you to drink. Well, that's quite enough of all that. Let's just refresh the viewer stat, shall we? Alright, that's got the next generation of electricians tuning in, and let's hope it's that generation who find themselves finally taking down the Tamlite floodlights I put up today at a natural end of life, rather than me having to undo my work because of any premature failures. Thanks for watching.